There is a lake without a floor, deep enough to sink all concepts of reality. Darkness, time, and monsters merge. Those who find themselves on the way down will discover how much pressure the human soul can take. When they wash up on shore, in their hands, they hold a pearl of insight. Now, will you swim in Umbra Lake?
The knocking had started around 2 hours ago, around dusk perhaps. The first knock had been slight, barely audible, faint. Perhaps one would not have considered it to be a knock at all. A stray pebble falling from the roof gutter, or even a random stone of gravel kicked up and against the front door by a speedily passing sedan. Maybe not a rock at all, but a hefty chunk of wood falling from one of the dense sugar maple trees that surrounded the 2-story cabin. But now, it was nightfall. Did it really matter? No, Jill Piscour answered aloud. A whisper. A second later, she caught herself, her hand covering her mouth. No talking. It might hear you. Chances are it already knows you're in here. Why else would it be knocking at this time of night? So persistent. She brought her hand away from her face, squirming in her seat on the living room sofa. She peeped the analog clock on the living room wall, over the mantel. It read 10:17 p.m. Beneath the rising fear in her stomach, she felt a tinge of frustration. Her boyfriend, Patrick, was late. He was always late to most everything, and he was especially late tonight, of all nights. A whopping 3.5 hours late. Why tonight? Jill thought angrily. But the frustration that she felt over her lover's tardiness was nothing compared to the fear. That fear, thick and heavy, dared to well up from her insides and strangle her. It trumped her anger. She only wanted him to get there ASAP. Jill looked around the room, her eyes darting to each window. The curtains were all drawn shut. She had made the decision to close them not long after she had arrived at Heaven's Edge Cabin, earlier that afternoon. She had made her way down from Cool Springs with little effort, having packed the night before. It had been light traffic and clear blue skies the morning of. The nearly 4-hour drive had been peaceful, serene even, and Patrick had made sure her Kia was full of gas, ready to make the road trip to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Not that her car needed much preparation. The Sorrento was barely a year old, an early graduation gift from Jill's stepfather, Mark. Mark was a handsome but balding 56-year-old CEO of an incredibly successful chain of banks. Jill couldn't remember the name, and had been married to her alcoholic mother, Emily, for the past 15 years. They had gotten married when Jill was 7. Mark was the only dad she ever knew, and she loved him without question. But she hated that Sorrento to no end. Though the car was meant to be a sincere gift, Jill knew the true reason behind it. It was the same reason that she accepted it, pretending to be awed and thrilled, when she was really repulsed by it. Guilt. Guilt over not being a better daughter. Mark a better husband. Guilt over not getting her mother and Mark's wife help while they both had the chance. And most of all, guilt over Rebecca. It was all Patrick's idea, of course, the getaway. It had been almost a year since everything had went downhill, and Patrick suggested a short vacation would help them move forward. A change of scenery for me and Jilly P, he had joked one Saturday morning over his customary bowl of bran flakes. You deserve this, Jilly, and we both need this. Let me plan us a 3-day stay, somewhere peaceful. Jill didn't exactly agree to it, but she didn't disagree entirely either. 2 weeks later, she had found herself packing some summer vacation clothes, an ensemble which included a hastily bought piece of lingerie that she knew she would never feel comfortable in, and going over the travel schedule with Patrick on the phone. "I'm so sorry, Jilly," he'd began, his voice solemn. "I forgot that I'd promised Charlie I was going to help him move this weekend." "Well, we can cancel," Jill had blurted out, a little too eagerly. Believing he noticed, she then added, "I mean, 2 weeks was not a lot of prep time, and I don't want you struggling to be in 2 different places at once." "No, babe, we're doing this. I'll work it out. Help him for the first half of the day, maybe break for lunch, and then leave for Sevier County around 3 o'clock? Jill did the math. Didn't like it. "What about 2? She asked, secretly unwilling to compromise. "That could work, but it might be pushing it." "I don't want to be out there alone after dark, Patrick. I've never—" "You're right," he interrupted. "Okay, 2 o'clock. Puts me in your loving arms by 6:15, latest." "Good," Jill pouted, before making an exaggerating kissing noise. "And seriously, Pat—" "I won't be late," Patrick had assured her, slight annoyance in his tone. "Okay," she had whispered. "I love you, Pat." "Love you more," Patrick had whispered back, then hung up. The conversation was had at 7:30 a.m. that morning. Breakfast time. Now, 4 hours had passed since his planned arrival time, and there was no evidence that Patrick would ever arrive. Jill fumbled for her Android phone, lying on the coffee table. She had already called Patrick over a dozen times since 6:30 p.m., her uneasiness growing as she watched the sunset and the cabin, along with its surrounding woods, become blanketed in darkness. Jill reminded herself, as she speed-dialed Patrick's number for the umpteenth time, that she was uber deep in the boonies. That meant that cell service was at its crappiest in the Great Smoky Mountains of the Volunteer State, the great American wilderness. She had accepted hours ago that she was in dead zone country when her signal had failed 3/4 en route to her destination. As per the case, Patrick's number went straight to voicemail. Jill listened again, the sound of her boyfriend's voice giving her momentary comfort. "Hey, yo, this is Pat, a.k.a. Patrick, a.k.a. the dopest kid you've ever heard. Leave a message at the beep and I'll holla back. Eventually. Good day." It beeped. "Patrick, this is your super pissed, soon-to-be ex-girlfriend. You promised me you wouldn't be late. You promised. It's dark outside and they're knocking on the door. And they won't say who they are. They knock and won't speak. I'm scared. I need you here. Please, try to call me or text me when you get this. Hurry." The knocking started on the front door again. Hard, repeated knocking. Firm, almost frantic. Jill almost jumped out of her skin. She leapt to her feet but stood in place, watching the door. "Patrick? Is that you?" she called out, her voice shaky. The knocking stopped. No answer. Jill clutched her cell to her chest. The voicemail disconnected. She called out again. "Who is it?" No answer. Jill could feel her frustration rising again, fighting against her fear. "This isn't freaking funny, Patrick. I can't believe this. Your grass, jackass." Still, no answer. Jill placed her cell phone back on the coffee table. She approached the cabin window nearest the front door with caution, her hands on her chest once again. She could hear the rapid thudding of her own heart. She leaned forward, reaching for the drawn curtain. She just wanted a peek, maybe get a quick look at Patrick, or Charlie even, or both. Her suspicions that this was a prank needed to be confirmed. "But they've already been debunked, Jilly girl," she scolded herself. "You've been peeking through these curtains for hours now. You saw nothing, every time. But something is out there, she replied to her logical mind. It keeps knocking. It won't stop. Ever so slight, she drew the curtain back with her fingers and peered out. Standing at the porch of the cabin door was a lumbering form, much too disproportionate to be human. Even in the pitch black of the night, Jill could see the contour of its disfigured body, its limbs long and spindly. Her eyes roamed upward over the body, whose height was nearly half of the cabin itself. Her eyes reached its head, just in time for it to look at her. Jill screamed as she stumbled backward. The designer rug beneath her feet kinked and she slipped, landing smack dab on her bottom. She turned, scrambling to her feet, and ran headlong from the living room into the kitchen dining area. As she ran, she heard a loud bang on the window. The creature now knew she was inside, and she now knew it existed. Her heart thudding in her throat, she hid in the kitchen, bracing her back against the inside wall, covering herself from the view of the living room window. Another sharp bang was heard against that window, and the sound made Jill think it was going to give away. She screamed again, not only out of terror this time, but mercy. Another bang, then another, and another, then a small crack. The window was indeed giving way. Jill slid down the wall and crumbled, bringing her knees to her chest. She dared not scream again. The tears began to flow, rich, thick rivulets falling onto her arms as she cowered. Her thoughts spun out of control as she fought to calm herself. This is not real. It's not. It's crazy, and I am not crazy. Patrick, where the hell are you? I need you. Jill expected to hear another loud bang. She was sure the next one would be followed by an even louder crash. But nothing came. Again, just as before, it stopped. But Jill could not bring herself up from her knees again, and could not dare to take another look through that window. Not yet. She remained there, hugging herself, for what seemed like several minutes, scared to move, struggling to think. And then she realized that she must check on the condition of the window. If it had been smashed completely, not at all an impossibility, her fear could have easily caused her ears not to hear the shatter. Then whatever she saw would now have a way inside, and if it could get inside, it could get to her. Her shoulders tensed. Jill stood up. Wiping away tears, she pushed her hair out of her face and walked back into the living room. The curtains still closed. She crept over and drew them back, only a couple of inches. Indeed, the window showed a spider's web of damage, stress cracks spreading out from its center. Notwithstanding, she peeped out at the front porch. It was gone. She gazed at the window damage again, covering her mouth. The reality of the situation and her suspicions were confirmed. The evidence that something was out there, and that whatever it was wanted inside, was plain before her, caught in 4K. The distorted body of the creature popped itself back into her mind, and Jill shuddered in response. What was that? She wondered. She searched her memories for any comparison. She thought back to all the lessons and courses she endured in the sciences of college, and even as a child in grade school, attempting to find some mammal or insect that would explain what she saw. She found none. She let go of the curtain, straightened the rug on the floor, and grabbed her cell from the coffee table. She checked her phone. Still no messages, and only one bar of Wi-Fi connectivity, a flickering bar at that. Nevertheless, she prayed that the universe would allow one of her voicemails to go through, eventually. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. It happened suddenly and without warning. Jill looked around the room, her head turning left and right. Nothing had changed. There was absolutely no one or thing alive in the room with her. The furniture and decor of the cabin had not been moved or altered in any way that she could tell, yet she could feel that something was there. Gooseflesh sprouted, traveling from the nape of her neck down to her arms. She clutched her phone and walked over to the sofa, scanned the room again. Once more, nothing was out of the ordinary, save the cracked window where the old monster had come knocking. But she was being watched. She knew it. Jill left the living room in a hurry. She ran past the front door, through the hallway, and into the bedroom that was located opposite the living room. This was the bedroom that she had decided she and Patrick should stay in when she'd first arrived. She had liked that it was close to the front of the cabin, just in case they needed to get anything from the car. Even more so, it made it far easier to unpack and repack the car. The repacking part was what she had liked most, but upon entering the room, she remembered why she had changed her mind. The room felt heavy. It was the only word she could think of to describe the feeling that overcame her every time she came into this room. She stood frozen as the overwhelming heaviness greeted her. A weight of gloom and impending doom. An invisible stamp of sadness. It was without explanation, and much like the appearance of the horrid creature she had encountered a short while ago, it was an undeniable fact of her new reality. This cabin was supposed to be a relaxing getaway from the nightmare she had endured a year ago. But this cabin was becoming its own nightmare. A nightmare she feared she would not awake from. Jill backed out of the otherwise quaint bedroom. The heaviness on her chest became lighter with each step backward. And with that, Jill realized that something was terribly wrong with the entire place. She returned to the living room, but noticed something her eyes had missed before. Over to the right of the fireplace sat a small podium. She gazed at the guest book lying on the podium for a long moment, seeing it for the first time. Guest books were not something she had ever wasted time with during past vacations. When it came to reviews, she took after her parents, who rarely, if ever, left a comment unless they had a suggestion or a complaint. Personally, she always believed that people only spoke up when subpar service was given. This was one of those times. If only to distract herself from the terror fighting to overtake her rational thought, a battle probably already lost, she decided to leave a little review in the newly discovered book. Jill dropped her cell onto the table once again. It was useless, right? And walked over to the podium. The guest book had Heaven's Edge embroidered in fancy letters on its cover. She opened it. There was an ink pen pasted with Velcro on the inside cover. She unlatched the pen and looked at what should have been the first page. There were several pages missing before it, the uneven edges still jutting out from the book's spine. It was obvious that they had been torn out. She read the first page aloud, mumbling to herself. "We'll never, never stay here again. Cabin is haunted. Could hear footsteps inside the cabin during the night. Power went out." Jill stopped reading, closed her eyes, flipped to the next page. Again, her lips moved softly, eyes poring over the words. "Haunted cabin. Do not stay here. Shadow people in the hallway." Jill flicked the page, stopped reading aloud. "Strange noises coming from downstairs. Voices." Another flick of the page. "Ghosts." Flick. "Dark figure." Flick. "Evil." With every frantic turn, the same words lit up on every page. "Haunted. Voices. Ghosts." Slamming the book shut, Jill backed away from the podium. Anger boiled and mixed with the terror, writhing in her belly once more. The contractors of Heaven's Edge Properties, Inc. know about this hellhole. They know this place is something very wrong with it. Even worse, the torn pages. Evidence of their attempts to cover it up. and a half-assed attempt at that. She almost laughed at the insanity of it all. Nothing like a living nightmare to make a person wish they had their old daily problems to deal with. Daily problems. Like how your boyfriend was spending way too much time with his guy friends. Problems like how those friends were not really friends at all, but in truth, a single friend. And most of all, how that single friend was not even a guy, and more than a friend. A woman. Charlie was the other woman, and Jill knew it, could feel it in her gut. She had known it in her heart for months now, and more than likely, that is whom Patrick was with during this very late hour. The anger grew even hotter in Jill's belly. Patrick was unfaithful. He insulted her intelligence daily with his affair, pretending that Charlie was another guy, pretending that he had not given up on their relationship within weeks after what happened with Rebecca. Rebecca indeed, with her baby blue eyes and hay-colored hair. Rebecca, with her supple body that wouldn't quit and her disarming charm and smarts. Rebecca, who was the absolute best parts of DNA both their pitiful parents could muster. The pretty one, the smart one, the favored one. The tears stung. Jill wiped them away with a single finger, choking back more as she did so. She returned to the sofa, slumping down onto the cushion as her mind wandered. She stared at nothing, forgetting her situation as her thoughts went to Patrick. What was he doing? Who, to be more precise? Is she like Rebecca, Pat? She mused. Charlie. Does she look like her? Of course she does. I know your type, and it was never me. And you think you're so clever, so secretive. But I knew. I knew it since my birthday. You thought you were so smart, but you talk in your sleep. Jill leaned forward, deep in thought. She smirked sardonically. Charlie. When you said her name, I couldn't believe it. I was still naive then, still thinking Charlie was your fellow bro, like as in Charles. Chuck. Huh. For the first few days, I even thought you were gay. In the closet. That Rebecca and I had just been convenient covers for your secret, your alternative lifestyle. The smirk faded. But then, I started to listen. Started to pay more attention to your words when you talked about your good old buddy, Charlie. It was something about your tone, Pat. Something about the way you said his name. As smart as you thought you were, you just couldn't hide your affection for the slut, could you? It was all in plain sight. All in the way you said her name. She began to rock back and forth. My sister's probably laughing it up from her VIP seat in hell, isn't she? Laughing at you. Me? And even that stupid knockoff of a girl you've convinced your booty-brained mind is Rebecca. I mean, what was the point of it all? What was the point of everything? Everything I did for us. If you were just going to throw it all away. Her hands balled into fists. And to top it all off, you bring me out here to be with you? In this terrible place of all places? Some getaway. Really? The cell phone rang. Jill flinched, the sound bringing her back to the present. The ringtone was a slowed plus reverb version of Mitski's My Love Mine, All Mine. It bit into the room's silence. All too familiar. Butterflies in the stomach. Patrick. She picked up. Patrick? Jilly, yeah, it's me, he answered. Where the hell are you? She hollered. Damn you, Pat. You promised. You promised. I know, he interrupted. I'm sorry, something happened. I don't care, Patrick, Jill spat. Wait a minute. She caught herself. How are we talking right now? She asked. That's what I've been trying to tell you, Jilly. When we got Charlie moved in, the water main in the new apartment busted. It set us back a few hours while we got that sorted out. I've been trying to call you, too. When I couldn't get through, I called the reception's desk and then the property manager. Jill took a deep breath. You and Charlie. A few hours to sort it out. Yep. Okay. Got it. There was a brief silence, and then Patrick continued. Manager's a stupid bimbo. Forgot to activate the Wi-Fi for the cabin. That's why we couldn't reach each other. Jill stayed quiet. She told me she'd send somebody out there to check on you while she got the connection turned on. Do a welfare check or something. No one came? No one human, Jill thought to herself. Guess not, he continued. Like I said, bimbo. Anyway, the network is on now. Your phone should have already joined it. Jill placed Patrick on speaker and checked the connection. Sure enough, a new network was now available, under the name HE at V3DG Guest. You find it, baby? Yeah, she said softly. Then remembered what she'd seen knocking on the door, and fear began to get the best of frustration. I need you here, so bad. I'm scared. The tears quietly returned. I know, baby, I'm so sorry about this, but everything's going to be okay. I can't be more than another 10, maybe 15 minutes out from you. Tops. I'm on my way. Her shoulders sagged. She sat on the sofa, hands folded in her lap, staring at the phone. Hurry, Patrick. There's something strange about this cabin. Listen, I'm almost there. Woods can be creepy at night. If you get too afraid, just go into that large pocket in the brown duffel bag I packed for us. Know where I'm talking about? Yeah, she whispered. A pause, then louder. Patrick, you didn't... A gun, Jill. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You didn't expect us to spend a whole 72 hours in the sticks with no firepower, did you? You know how I hate... Jill began. Patrick interrupted, annoyed. Guns, I get it. But I told you from day one we started dating that guns are a part of my life. My daddy taught me to hunt, baby. It was one of the things we did together before he died. And his collection became my collection, and I ain't ever giving it up. I know. Jill interrupted back. I put the 9 milli in the duffel, he went on. It's in the leather holster. Safety off before you pull the trigger. You know how I taught you. Right. I picked up a couple of thin crust pies at this pizza place near the reception building. I know you're starving. Jill was anything but. 10 minutes, Patrick. Keep me waiting any longer? We're done. 10 minutes, he repeated. Love you, Jilly. Love you too, she said. The cell phone screen went black. Jill looked over at the damaged window. She couldn't see the spiderweb cracks in it through the drawn curtains, but she knew it was still there. Despite everything, the conversation succeeded in calming her in more ways than one. Her anger had disappeared with the hope that, in a few more minutes, she would no longer be alone. Aside from that, she was glad that she had a weapon to protect herself with. As much as she despised guns, she needed something to defend herself. The thought of being able to fight back against whatever it was that had been knocking, to wage war with that huge, lumbering creature that had nearly smashed the front window to bits, was empowering. Jill's smirk returned. She almost became giddy with anticipation, imagining her cheating boyfriend's gun in the palm of her hands. She stood and headed for the stairwell leading to the upstairs bedroom, where she had left her unpacked things. Jill crept upstairs. The cabin was quiet, save the soft thumps of her tennis shoes, as she made her trek to the master bedroom. The room was spacious, complete with large windows, a built-in full bath, and of course a king-sized bed. Her suitcase rested on that bed, right where she'd left it. The brown duffel bag, the one containing the gun, was lying at the foot of the bed, on the floor. Jill hoisted the bag up and onto the bed next to the suitcase. She unzipped its large pocket, opened it. Inside, just as Patrick had told her, was a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, a Beretta 92 FS. It had belonged to Patrick's father. Indeed, he had received it as a young recruit during the Persian Gulf War. For Jill, that was neither here nor there. It had taken place a good while before she was even a twinkle in her own father's eyes. But she respected the history. She unfastened the holster button and pulled the strap loose. Pulling the handgun from its holster, she felt a mixture of awe and disgust as she gripped the butt. A clap of thunder, another rumble behind it, and then rain. Jill heard the pitter-patter of droplets as they began to pelt against the roof of the cabin. She looked over the gun. It was well kempt. Without fail, Patrick made a habit of cleaning it every weekend. She didn't even bother to check the magazine. It was loaded. 15 rounds. Patrick never kept his guns unloaded. Never considered things going by the wayside. Just wasn't in his nature. It was this unassuming part of his personality that had ultimately worked to Jill's advantage a year ago. Rebecca Piscor had come home from university for spring break. She was wrapping up her bachelor's degree and fast heading for med school. My sister was never one to be outdone. Despite all her achievements, beauty, and favor, she wanted to have the better career too. Why? Why couldn't she just let her plain Jane, flat-chested little sister be better at something? Patrick Rugg had originally been Rebecca's boyfriend. A tall, handsome young man, about to finish college with a degree in physical education. At first, he only had eyes for his girlfriend, and it was only a matter of time before they tied the knot. But it was during that spring break vacation that Jill decided she wanted Patrick, and that she would have him, no matter the cost. It was far from easy, big sister, Jill remembered. But the one mistake you made was the clinging to your religion. Your faith was what helped me get Pat away from you. He wanted sex, true commitment, risk. You wanted safety, marriage first. And you, in your perfection, with your perfect face and perfect body and perfect plan, wouldn't give him what he needed. But I did. Patrick had been frustrated with Rebecca's life plan. He was an atheist, a non-believer, just as his father had been before him. He didn't believe that sex was for married people only. He believed in freedom. During that week, the three of them, Patrick, Rebecca, and Jill, attended a local fair in Ashland City. They had stopped for lunch at a local Mexican joint named El Rey. It was during Rebecca's visit to the restroom that Patrick, left alone with Jill, had voiced his frustrations. "What's up with your sister?" he had asked. "What do you mean?" Jill had asked back, knowing exactly what he meant. "You know, with the religion?" Jill took a bite of her chimichanga and followed it with a sip of water. She took her time before answering. "Don't really know. It's never been our thing. Our family? It's just something she picked up from one of her friends over summer camp when she was like 12. Her friend, ended up drowning later that summer. Something like that. Never got over it." Patrick shifted in his seat. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Just between me and you. I think I'm in love with your sister." Jill looked him in the eyes as she forked a bite of rice and beans into her mouth. Said nothing. Patrick went on. "I want to be with her. You know, like, physically, but..." "She wants to wait," Jill finished, mouth still full. "Yeah," he mumbled. Jill shoved another forkful of rice into her mouth and smiled. "You seem like a great guy, Patrick. No offense to my sister or her faith, but either she knows you're the right guy for her, or she doesn't. Either way, why should you have to wait?" At this, Patrick looked at Jill. She only winked at him, smiled, and took another bite of chimichanga. Now, almost 1 year later, Patrick was Jill's boyfriend. Rebecca and their mother Emily were dead because of a traffic accident. And the only thing standing between Jill and her happiness was a lumbering monster trying to get inside the cabin. And of course, Charlie. But Jill believed the universe had been good to her. So good. It had already shown, time and again, whose side it was on. Rebecca's faith had not been enough to save her relationship. Or her life. Fate had been in the younger sister's favor. Finally. But she still fought back guilt. Guilt because of the seeds she planted for her sister's ruin on that simple day at El Rey. And guilt over the fact that 2 lives had to be taken so that 1 life could thrive. My life. Knock. 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 Jill heard the 3 heavy pounds on the front cabin door, even from the upstairs bedroom. They echoed throughout the cabin, drowning out the sound of rain for a moment. She took a deep breath, calming herself. She looked over the service pistol one final time, took the safety off, and started toward the stairs. As she crept down the stairwell, Jill made sure to grip the gun properly and readied her mind and body to take a fighting stance at the first sign of trouble. All these tidbits of defense were taught to her by Mr. Patrick Rugg himself. Knock, 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 knock. The knocking started again, just as heavy as before, but more urgent, frantic. Jill made her way to the bottom of the stairwell. The knocking stopped. Jill froze. And then, knock, 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 knock. She crept toward the front door, gun pointed. She stopped several feet shy and called out, "Who is it?" "It's me, baby." Jill's heart skipped. Patrick. Knock, knock, knock. "Let me in, Jilly, let me in." Butterflies. Jill ran into the living room and placed the service pistol on the coffee table, next to her cell phone. She jogged back to the door. 10 minutes, she smiled, unlocking the door. "You knew I was serious this—" She twisted the handle. Her cell phone rang. The melodic ringtone blared on, cutting through the air. It was My Love, Mine, All Mine, slowed in reverb, by Mitski. "It's me, Jilly P!" Something not quite Patrick screamed from the outside. Jill looked over at the phone. A spindly, deformed arm, black as midnight, forced itself through the cabin door. The wood splintered on impact. Jill screamed in terror as the long hand latched hold of her. The ringtone played on, as the mimics buried its spiked nails into her shoulder. Butterflies and blood. A second arm, identical to the first, reached through what was left of the door. It groped through the air for less than a second before finding her scalp. Jill screamed louder as she struggled to break free. She finally tore her body free of the creature's grip, partially scalping herself in the process. Falling to the floor, she scrambled back to her feet and lunged for the service pistol on the coffee table. The ringtone played still, competing for attention over Jill's guttural screams and the mimic's yowling. Mitski crooned on with her rich, silky voice, oblivious that she was being featured on the soundtrack of the final moments of one Jill Piscor. Jill fell short a couple of feet. The mimic pulled her down midair by her leg. Her body thudded the floor. The monster squeezed its disfigured body inside the doorway. It pulled itself on top of Jill's legs as she tried to crawl to, reach for, the gun. One of the creature's arms slammed against the cracked window that it damaged earlier in the night. The window shattered. It then grabbed a random shard of broken glass from the floor and began stabbing her with it. Jill's screams grew hoarser, weaker, with every impalement. Her blood splattered the walls, table, sofa. Jill stopped screaming, stopped moving. The phone continued to ring, then stopped. The mimic, all bulbous eyes, shark teeth, and wet midnight fur, leaned forward, craning its head over the woman's limp body. It watched with dedicated eyes, searching for movement, signs of life. Satisfied, having found none, it grunted. "Mine!" it yowled, in another voice not belonging to Patrick or its own, but the voice of the late Rebecca Piscor, the pretty one, the smart one, the favored one. It hobbled back to the open doorway, squeezing out through the hole of which it came, dragging the pile of flesh that was once known as Jill Piscor along with it. And with that, an age-old question was asked and answered. If a woman is killed in the woods, does she make a sound? Yes, of course. That sound is called a scream, and only the universe can hear it.
Not Right in the Head by AlexNeverDies. Narrated by Marshall Treat. Our jackets are embroidered with a large Old English S on the back. We're the Sinister Gang. The police have been waiting for us to make a move for a while now. Word goes around that they have scraped together every law enforcement officer in town. The smell of war is on the streets. We're on the brink of destruction. I could care less. The Reaper never comes. Tonight, I started with some debauchery at the drive-in. Every other gang in town has been scared off, leaving us to do the military patrol. Anyone that isn't supposed to be here gets the boot. The show ended around midnight. We saw Underworld Justice. I was so busy that I only caught one scene. The main character's name doesn't come to mind, but he's played by that Irish fellow, William Keller. He tries to kiss the doll, but she scratches him across the eyes. The crowd laughs. After that, we found the crew parking the cars around Shadow Mountain. Every Sinister car got a guy and gal except Oliver and I. 2 damn stags on a Saturday night. "What are we still doing here?" Oliver asks. "Let's go shoot pool or something." Tommy told us to stay together tonight. It's almost like my words spoke something to fruition. Police spot us all around. We're surrounded. I barely pull my gun out before I can catch a pig firing from cover. 1 second, I turn my head and see a necking friend. And the second, I witness them being pierced with a bullet. Tommy, Mark, Will, Ben, Brett, Aaron, Josh, and Dylan are Swiss cheesed, dying in their lovers' arms. A massacre. "Do something, Jack!" Oliver pleads for an escape plan. "We're stuck. I can't reverse." I scream. The last option is to drive down the cliff. The Studebaker breaks the barricade and then eats through all the grass as we tumble down the hill. We abruptly stop. Oliver and I are the only ones who escaped, synced simultaneously. A chance to get over the barbed wire fence through the farms. Flashlights shine atop the mountain. The police stayed occupied with my dead brothers. I imagine one of the Sinisters is creeping life enough to pull a Friday night special and get some revenge. "Jack, there's nowhere to go. The TPD surely occupies 56th Street. They've been planning this for a year. We can't stop." We run through the woods. My legs don't seem to fail me as the thought of lighting Tulsa up fuels me. The chasing flashlights behind us are fading. Dirt roads, pastures, and trees are the only things we come across. Every farmhouse we pass makes me realize I've never been to this area. We're lost. The boys and I usually stick to the city, but we're in the sticks now. Old ruins ahead. Some ghosted gas stations and mile signs rusted over. The cows are gone, and the fence is covered in weeds. Crossroads intersect. Crossroads intersect. A point of refuge. We see an old church on top of the hill in the woods. "I'm not running anymore, Jack. A Sinister never sleeps." "I'm tired," Oliver murmurs. "No rest for the wicked, I guess. Maybe I'm tired of being wicked. If exhaustion means I'm evil, then call me the devil, and that church is my sanctuary." "Okay, Oliver. You're right. Acting on this much adrenaline could get us in worse trouble." Oliver and I trudge up the hill to see the name of the old church, Furbearer Baptist. I don't think there is a town outside Tulsa called Furbearer, so it must have harkened back to a trapper community out here. Little places like this disappear at the turn of the century. People can drive into town with a church on every block. We push that old wooden door open, disregarding the condemnation posting stapled centered. Inside is nothing but a stack of dusty Bibles and empty pews. Cobwebs hang off the cross behind the pulpit. Some old plastic carpet remains tracked with critter footprints and mouse feces. This reminds me of the time I went to church. I only ever went once. Mom dropped me off, and I was scolded by some older man for having holes in my jeans. After that, every time Mom dropped me, I just walked around and bummed cigarettes from the redneck kids by the train tracks. I know Oliver's situation is different. He still wears a medal across his neck and speaks fondly of the Lord. "I don't want to die, Jack," Oliver says. "Not with this person I've become. You're fine. You ain't going to die. I can't say with certainty that I'll ever see them again. What does that say about me? A coin toss on the company I keep ever entering heaven." That superstition stuff is for the birds. You aren't going to die. We got a roof over our heads, and the worst is behind us. I try to reassure him. "I have a roof over my head. Thanks a lot." "They wiped out our family on the spot," I say from the gut. "The bullet split Tommy's head before the glass even shattered. You should be filled with rage, not self-centered sorrow." A teardrop. "Why?" Oliver cries to himself. "Why did I get involved? Why did I tell my mother I didn't need her anymore?" "Sorry, Ollie," I say to console. "Let's get some rest." Oliver sleeps in the middle pew. I take the next one. It's an uncomfortable night, with little rodent scratches on the wall waking me every 5 minutes. The wind howls outside, and I'm paranoid that the front door will burst open. What unknown horror could emerge? I check in on Oliver as he clutches his cross in his sleep. I throw my jacket over my eyes like a child hiding from a monster in the closet. The sun rises without notice. At some point, I settle into the discomfort. Oliver wakes me with a tap on my feet. He sits there in a white tee, smoking his last cigarette. I share a breath. Through my puff, I notice that Ollie has hooked his jacket on the front door hanger. I'm not about to pull rank. He isn't supposed to drop colors. Everyone handles loss their own way. "Jack, we should turn ourselves in. 2 men can't fight the world," Oliver says. "It makes no sense to hide out here." "If we can hold out, we will be fine. The whole thing will blow over if we give it 2 weeks, maybe a month." "We have nothing." "You don't. I do." I stomp off to secure the location. Ollie doesn't want to try, but I'm about to prove him wrong. Downstairs there is a pantry. I rummage through the mostly expired food. There is a collection of dent-canned mystery meat. We can whip up canned black beans if need be. The supply closet has something of a little more interest. The room is full of old trapper equipment. I look at my gun as my only tool for hunting, but with a trap, we could be eating good. Varmint Kingdom. The room is clear now. This might be a better place for us to sleep. We could put plenty of blankets on the floor, and we'd be hidden from intruders. I tinker with the trap until I figure out how to load it. There we go. I wipe some old expired peanut butter inside the cage. At night, something should catch. A family of raccoons runs out after a loud clack of metal. They streak upstairs and out the door. I'm not going to lie. That scared me halfway out of my skin. Oliver follows me to the bushes to set the trap. We're not talking. Hard feelings, and even harder heads. I'm more of a survivalist out here, and he continues to mope. I check the trap a dozen times while hauling jugs of water back to the church. I strike a match and build a makeshift fire from sticks outside. Oliver won't realize I used a few hymn pages as kindling. The collapsing church is well ventilated. After the fire warms, he is put on cooking duty. "You ever been to Miami?" I say. "Miami, Oklahoma?" "No, Miami. How about that, man? Let's go to Miami. We could sneak back into town, keep a low profile, and go straight to the bus station. It'd take 2 days, but we can sit in the Atlantic sand when we get there." "I've never been. Seen the ocean, climbed a mountain, or kissed a girl. I reckon I haven't done much except be a loser." "You're my brother. You mean something to me." "I appreciate that. Ollie says with a sad smile.
Tell me what you see when you see me. What do you want from me? I honestly feel phony in spirit.
I want you to quit being so hard on yourself. I scoop into my bowl and fill my mouth. Eating will stop unkind words from coming out of our mouths. He sees our family as a blight on his life. A violent scream shrieks from the woods. It's a blood-curdling screech. Without words, we give each other an eye and close up camp. We rush downstairs and tuck into bed. My gun stays by my side. If I see a footstep enter this place, it's getting 2 in the big toe. Oliver and I fall asleep. It's odd, man. Despite our differences, we are it. The following day, we checked on the trap. It's like a bit of common sense set in. The noise was some critter crying once it got its foot wrangled. Right snug between the bushes, I see the metal cage, a furry body breathing. The chest rises and falls over a choice of minutes. I grab a stick and poke it in the tail. Suddenly, the beast flips around and hisses at me. A possum. Oliver and I got all riled up last night over nothing. Just a dang old possum. I reach down to try and open the trap. It's not working. The thing is stuck. The possum violently shakes the cage back and forth, trying to get out. The scream sounds precisely like last night. The animal wedges itself in the chicken wire, gnawing for escape. It foams at the mouth, white froth flung upon my pant leg. Something isn't right.
You don't plan on eating that, do you?
Oliver watches from behind.
We're not that hungry.
It's moving too much for me to open this rusty cage, I say, pulling my gun out. It's best to put her out of her misery. She could have something wrong.
The little gal is a lot like us,
Oliver says, approaching the cage.
Let me calm her down.
Oliver bends the cage wire and disassembles it. The possum lunges, but Oliver snaps his fingers back to avoid a bite. She latches onto Oliver's shirt sleeve. I grab behind its neck until it releases. The rabid beast keeps freaking out the closer it gets to freedom. The rodent squeezes through, halfway lodged under the gate. The cage is removed, and she takes off into the woods. Go wash up in the stream, okay? You never know where an animal like that has been.
She didn't break the skin,
Oliver says.
You got any dish soap?
No. You'll have to mix salt and baking soda, but that'll do the job.
You got any pre-mixed left?
Go mix it yourself. I joke and punch him in the left arm. Your camping skills are about as useful as Mountain Dew. Now go on and get washed up.
That sounds like it'd fix me up, Mountain Dew and whiskey.
That night, Oliver and I built another fire. We skipped eating. After spending the day clearing Fort Furbearer's Baptist basement, Oliver isn't hungry. Our extended stay could expose us to some wet elements. Wouldn't it be wild if a tornado came through and wiped Oliver and me off the planet? Maybe it could take us somewhere else. I have a feeling Tulsa is coming with me no matter what. Sinister is with me for life. Twigs and leaves crack in the distance, and consistent footsteps march toward us. I muster some bravery and peek my head out the window. Flashlights shift in the dark, and a whole posse of people is 100 yards from our location. I grab a blanket and throw it over our fire. Whatever that is, they know we're here. The smoke signal would point them to the spot. Basement, I quietly say to Oliver. A small grate on the upper part of the wall lets us see the lobby from the basement. The voices grow until they're directly above us. Flashlights shine all around the chapel. Glass blasts as a door is kicked in. The Tulsa police, headed by the chief, Vic Coop, barge into the sanctuary. The squad takes a break and sits around the ashes of our fire.
Sinisters scatter like roaches, don't they?
Vic says to his team.
Whoever was here is gone now. We'll soon catch them begging for money on the streets. There isn't much left. That entire morgue was filled to the brim with the gangster scum.
How much farther do you want us to go? An officer asks the chief. From Shadow Mountain, we're about 10 miles out. Do you think they went the long haul? Oliver coughs, and I cover his mouth. A dust mite is in his throat. Oliver is still a little wheezy, but he's holding his own. He struggles to breathe, quietly sniffing from his running nose. We stay quiet and tiptoe to the trapper closet, the most secure hiding spot. The light doesn't go that far down the stairs, so the police squad scrambles upstairs and points their flashlight down this hole. They're never brave enough to get us.
Don't bother going down there. When your back is against the wall, they might shoot," the police chief says. "I want you to know that you'll never leave this place. If you want to hide, go ahead. Every farmhouse in the area will report you. I know your name, Oliver."
They know Oliver's name. It's not safe to enter town now. How did I get lucky enough not to be identified? The police leave at some point. I don't know how we made it out of that one. We fall asleep in the closet, and eventually, Oliver's illness shows.
Oliver's cough was more than allergies in a dusty room. After each painful cough in his chest, sweat drips from his head. My mother taught me to treat a fever with a cold rag and noodle soup, but this sickness will keep us here for another week. Hospital isn't an option, but we can't risk staying here much longer. It takes all morning to begin our escape. Oliver stands to his feet like an older man, and whatever he has caught takes a toll. I'll be the pack mule. We only had clothes on our bodies, but even I'm leaving my jacket now. My gun tucked in my pants, I'm almost dying to bump into Tulsa PD. We leave Fur Bearer Baptist and push through to the other side of the woods. We could start walking toward town, but I'm unsure how convincing our hitchhiker disguises ourselves. There is plenty of farmland to trudge through before we re-enter the city. I know all the shortcuts to the bus station. The Sinister insignia is recognized throughout Oklahoma, but if we could cross the state line, Ollie could get help without anyone booking him. There's a farmhouse in the distance, an old cabin, probably built during the land grab. We both could use something to eat if a lonely widow were there to show us mercy. It's easy to catch on that a hunter lives here. Outside the house hang 6 deer hides. I don't try to sneak. I make myself known with large waves of my arm. In a fever state, Oliver leans on the fence guarding the cabin. He props himself up enough that I can keep an eye on him. Before I reach the door, an old lady answers. She has full white hair, glasses, and an apron padded with grease-stained handprints. Her right hand stays hidden, holding what I presume is a rifle. The smell of cooked meat wafts my way. Lunch is ready. A brief thought of the caveman days crossed my mind. A Sinister takes what they need, and a troglodyte would club her to survive. A flash of what I could do and how I could get my way appears in my mind as I grip the handle of my gun. "I'm looking for some help."
"Son, I don't think I can help you,"
the old lady says.
"You look like you're a lot of trouble to be on my private property."
"I understand. We got lost out here and I don't know which way to town." I walk away. "Thank you for your time."
"Wait a minute."
She takes pity on us.
"I'll get you some fresh clothes and something to eat. How sick is your friend?"
"Is there any way you could help him as well? His fever hasn't let up."
"Can you be honest with me?"
"Yes, ma'am, I will." I go inside and leave Oliver in the shade. The old lady hands me 2 fresh jeans and 2 plaid shirts. She then wraps up 2 egg and bacon meat pies, which makes my mouth water. I eyeball the room, trying to spot any medicine we could use. The goods could be in a cabinet, but I shouldn't press my luck if she isn't offering.
"Are you the one that's been camping at Fur Bearer Baptist Church?"
My friend and I were involved in a shootout. Since we're part of a gang in town, you might not want to associate with us, but that's the candor you want. We didn't kill anybody.
"Don't make me regret it."
The old lady walks me out.
"I was warned about you. They told me to shoot you on sight."
She hands me a bottle of fever reliever.
"This bottle alone isn't going to do the job. You're going to need some amoxicillin for your friend. It's an antibiotic for that infection."
"Thank you."
"Seek peace."
I leave the house. At the fence, Oliver is missing. When I went inside, he must have gotten away from me. His delusional mind is getting out of hand, and I'm questioning even putting him on a bus. The hills hold trees, and the tall grass on the plains shifts. The Oklahoma winds pick up. On the horizon, a man is walking back to the church. That has to be Ollie. "Wrong way," I say. "Oliver, where are you going?" I finally catch him.
"The angels want me back."
"It was a stupid idea to have you move this much. I don't think you're in the right mind. We need to get to the bus, and you need to sleep."
"We will be among the watchers, and when the time is right, we will be pointed in the right direction."
I try to shake him out of confusion, but Oliver falls and faints repeatedly. His head is warm to the touch.
I tuck under his arm and guide him back to the church. The pain medicine will make him feel a lot better. Once his fever is reduced, our stay at Furbearer can end. Days pass. Oliver spends most of the working hours in bed. His fever is getting out of hand. The quicker Ollie gets better, the faster we can leave this place. But he doesn't seem to be recovering. If he's sleeping, he's fine. But he begins to wake up in these daydream ideals, ramblings of a schizophrenic man. I've been contemplating my options to get a hold of the antibiotics. When I wake him for dinner, it's a coin toss on how coherent he will be, like a sleepwalker. I catch him in the trapper room, fiddling with all sorts of metal contraptions. The traps surrounding his bed are aligned and inventoried. They've never been set, but that's what I worry about. I have to put him back on the cot every time, like some dementia patient. "Oliver, the Sinisters need that man to die," Oliver says. "It's your job, Oliver." "Ollie, it's Jack," I reply. "I've never asked you to kill anyone." "Jack is my friend. I can't kill him." "Oliver, snap out of it." I grab him by the shoulder and shake him violently. "I need you. Do you understand? I can't do this alone. We were supposed to be in Miami 3 days ago." "The angels are watching in the deep dark. They list everything we've done and how we can atone." The time is now for us to claw ourselves away from pain and doubt about what we've done. Let's carry on our shoulders what we started. Pleasing the Sinisters was all I was about, and maybe we'd be different if we'd had left then. But that's our chance now. "I want to be free, Jack. I can free you." It's outside. It's not here. Oliver lies back down in his makeshift bed. I push all the traps into the closet. The church is empty, and I'm alone. I walk up to the top of the sanctuary and look out the window, trying to prove to myself that everything Oliver said isn't true. As seen from the trees are nocturnal flares staring back. Eyes everywhere wanting to return to their home. "Go on, get!" I shout at the top of my lungs. The shiny eyes vanish and hurry back to whatever hole they came from. I've accounted for all the varmint species in the area. We must be in peak squirrel season or something. Certainly not angels wanting back inside. I can catch my breath and quit letting my mind run away. Either get the antibiotic or leave Ollie here. I put on my best farm boy outfit using what I was given. My head is completely shaved from a razor slip, but I cover up with a baseball cap. The dirt road in Tulsa is lonely. The Shadow Mountain skyline reminds me of all the deaths we've seen. If a police officer drives by, they're guaranteed to approach me. If they do, I'm done and they're done. But that is a poetic end to a former gangster. The pharmacy is a few miles from the first city limit sign, so I'm in familiar territory now. Ollie and I booked it that night. How did we run this far? The only other time I've seen this part of Tulsa is in a away Little League game. Our team, the Snakes, smoked those losers out of Sand Springs. Afterward, they were spitting sunflower seeds at us. It's a hike, but the traffic is picking up. I'm almost there. A shortcut through the alley takes me right to the pharmacy. I find a lovely tree to sit and hide like a bum. Many cars pass, and no one seems to care enough to call the cops. Even from this distance, I see the sign on the door. Operation hours 9 to 12, then 1 to 5. That lunch break is coming soon. High noon strikes, and the pharmacist leaves the building. As soon as they drive out, I walk to the door. The pharmacy won't ever let this happen to them again. My palm is sore from holding the rock. I throw the stone and bust out the front door. Glass rains and passers-by awe at me. Some middle-class pencil neck mouths the words, "The audacity." Smash and grab success depends on prior security measures, and like I've always said, Tulsa doesn't have a good Samaritan in sight. I walk in, and to my surprise, the cashier hood isn't lowered. I jump through the window. Today's deposit sits on the counter. Money controls everything except those who have enough. I stuff the cash in my pockets. I scroll through all the different medicines until I find an antibiotic. The names are too complex even to figure out the difference. I grab a handy thank you for shopping sack and load every type of antibiotic inside. The pills rattle around when I run to the exit. I'm headed to 56th Street, our territory. Old graffiti tags had been repainted, a remnant of the Sinister gang. I fantasize about us rebuilding the gang. We would start slowly, getting things off the ground. A new supplier, a new racket, I could be the leader. But as far as this street, it's a ghost town. I stand under a street lamp on the corner. I remember this corner, right here, where I met Oliver. Tommy introduced us. He called me Jumpin' Jack, and Oliver was known as the Rookie. We sold a bag of powder. That's all I ever knew. We gave them the bag and got the money. At first, I didn't understand the level of danger, and I'm not proud of what we did. When someone refused to pay, we held them at gunpoint and took more than what we had priced. Oliver would complain when we did that, but I always called it an inconvenience fee. "Sir?" the voice says from one side. "Do you have a moment?" A police officer approaches me. They squashed us and now patrol our street. If Oliver were by my side, we'd knock this man senseless. Who knows how many officers are hiding in the trees? I stand tall. 3 other officers start walking my way out of the woodwork. "You know where you are?" the officer says. "This corner right here. 2 sissy sinisters would sell drugs, very much like that bag you're holding." "What are you doing? It's just medicine." I plead. "It's for a friend." "What's the push?" "Nothing. It's antibiotic." The police jump me with a barrage of kicks. One enforcer keeps a baton on me to control the situation. Anytime I get a little ground, he whacks me on the back. I suppose I could reach my gun. The pistol falls out of my belt. I can't get a hold of it. The weapon is immediately knocked from my hands. 2 hits plant on my head as I scramble for my shooter. The baton bashes across my back again. I drop to my belly, covering the weapon. They stand over me as the dominant, pinning me down with a boot. Strength rips the bag from my hands, tearing out all the medicine and stringing it to the streets. The lead officer keeps opening bottles and dumping pills. I'll ask again, what's the push? Nothing. All I ever knew was gone. No one cares. My family is dead, and only Oliver remains. I survive. I pull the money out of my pockets and throw it. The police collect the bills, grabbing as many as possible, almost turning against each other. I snatch my gun and whatever antibiotic that I can. The police chase me. The hits to my chest are making it hard to breathe. The pursuit is getting closer. I can't keep this up. I turn around and fire my gun. Bang! 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 3 of the men collapse. I throw evidence in the bushes and run back to the church. I'm a dead man. I return to the church as this beaten-up pulp of a person. The night falls in the countryside. Police sirens echo shrieks like witches at midnight. This is it. I'm to be executed without thought. We must leave the church and run away. The chief will return with lots of guns. It wouldn't be a merciful death. They would take their time to break our bones. The Furbearer Baptist Church creaks at the top of the hill. I return with heavy knocks on the door. I hesitate about what awaits. The wooden door pushes open. Mice scatter into the hole under the floorboard. Oliver leans at the pulpit, still alive, in a slight coma, bent over like he's been up to something. His shirt is missing. I rush to his side and help him to his feet. He gets on his knees as if I'm the holy man placing the sacrament on his tongue. He swallows 1 pill, and I give him a drink of water. I see white fluff dribble down his chin. Anguish. Dead animals lie at the altar. A raccoon, a possum, a rat, and a fox with snapped necks. The creatures displayed like an offering. Oliver has gone off the deep end. I notice scratches on his arm as he continues to cry. The animals tore him up. Oliver is infected with something so much worse than we thought. His mind has crumbled into insanity. Did you get scratched by that possum a few weeks ago? I speak. We need to get you to the hospital. I think there is something wrong with your brain. It was a barbed wire fence. It scratched you, and you hid it from me. That scratch gave me insight. I was there. I should have thought you would hide that from me. I know you never wanted to be a burden, but you don't realize I would never let something happen to you. I've been in the deep woods and cleansed my past, but I still await peace. Those animals are sick, and those angels are trapped inside. Let's free our souls, and that's how we'll find peace. I'm sick. The Sinisters are sick. Ollie. Oliver violently starts shaking his head with yellow eyes. I stand waiting. I should run, but my hand reaches out to console Oliver. A wash of doom to those who called the middle of this sanctuary safe. It's over. Oliver brandishes a hidden knife. The knife was from the trapper room, rusted to uselessness. The edge is sharp now. I run to the other side of the room to put seats between Oliver and me. He chases and slashes at my throat. Oliver continues to block every one of my exits. He's not getting tired. The illness bypasses his bodily needs. I climb a service ladder into the rafters and kick it down. Oliver twitches around, talking to himself. A broken stained glass window is elevated above the room. If I can crawl across, that's where I can slip out. With every step I take, I feel the entire church beginning to collapse. Oliver stares up at me, waiting for me to fall. One more step. Crash! A support beam caves and I fall to the floor. The air is knocked out of my lungs. I roll to my feet. Broken ankle. The pain ignites through my body, and I stumble a little after each step. In the destruction, I'm able to exit through the entrance. Oliver climbs over the debris and pursues. Ah! Oliver screams, running after me with the knife. I hobble to the woods. If I could climb a tree, hide in a bush, or cover myself with leaves, I would lose him in the dark. Oliver veers off as I zigzag through the branches. He moves parallel to my shadow, stalking me from tree to tree. I can't find the knife's shine, or the sound of his breathing. He's waiting for a chance to strike. Jack, Oliver whispers from the woods. Let me free you. Let me go, Oliver. You can stay here. Just let me go. Ah! Oliver charges at me again. From behind a pine, the madman runs sharp side at me. I duck under the stab at my heart. Momentum isn't on my side. It's a battle between adrenaline and pain. Every time I catch a look at Oliver, I see his snarling teeth chopping at me. He wants a bite. I'm not too far away from the dirt road. Headlights cut through the shadows, tires peel gravel, and dust plumes from the road. I'm almost out of the woods, but can't turn around. Snap! A bear trap breaks my leg and crumbles me to the ground. Blood pours. I try to crawl, but the trap is chained to a tree. The last two Sinisters kill each other over nothing. Those police horns still cry in the mountain. I'm finished. Oliver has lost his mind, and I lost my leg. Through a slice of moonlight, he walks my way. His eyes are hollow now. I imagine that blade slowly pushing through my chest. He drops the knife and sticks it upright in the ground. We get face to face. Get off of me! One last bark to scare him away, but nothing. Oliver sinks his teeth into my wrist. The rabid foam pouring from his mouth gets in the wound. Punches I land do nothing. I wrap the bear trap chain around his throat. It holds him back, but psychopathy rages. His body will have to give. I tighten the chain and choke him until life passes. We lie together for the last time. There's plenty I wish I had told him about, but it's over now. His glossy eyes are empty. This is it. He rolls over like a dead deer. I faint. As the sun rises, I catch silhouettes of figures walking in my direction. Their footsteps get closer. I see them holding their hands over their hearts. I wake up with something in the air, a rotten smell. Oliver has already begun to decompose. I hope he's in a better place now. I can't even tell if I'm dead yet. I still feel trapped. The figures are getting closer. They spread their wings in an 8-foot span. Giants themselves. They wear golden gowns, draped to the floor. Fear trembles through my body, and I throw a stick to keep them away. Finally, they get close enough that I see the creatures' faces. Humanoids with critters' faces. The fox, possum, rat, and raccoon stare at me in pity.